Chuck didn't tell you, feel free to move that microphone around, make yourself comfortable.
A little bit more. Okay.
Yep. Just make sure you're speaking into it.
You bet. All right.
All right. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Sorry. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. Sir, your name's Dennis Jackson, and you've caused to be filed in this matter pre-filed testimony on behalf of yourself as well as Jackson Farms of Terrell, Inc. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And where's the land in question located that is targeted for this pipeline?
Dickinson County.
And sir, if we were to walk through all of the same questions that we have in your pre-filed testimony, would you give approximately the same answers here today?
I would.
And along with your pre-filed testimony, which is Exhibit Landowner 119 and 120, did you also cause to be filed a hearing exhibit that's Landowner 303 with additional information you think is important?
I did.
I would offer Exhibits 119, 120, and 303.
Are there any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Seeing no objections, the board will admit.
Thank you. Sir, did you have any corrections to your testimony that you believe are necessary to be made at this time?
I do not.
All right. With that, I'll tender the witness for cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, I was going to call on you first anyway.
All right. Yeah, the honor could go to someone else and I wouldn't care.
Your call. I'm sorry. I just assumed you'd been first, but Ms. Ryan had her card up.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
All right, Ms. Ryan,
Thank
you're
you,
lead
Your
off
Honor.
now.
I just have a couple of questions for you. You mentioned the elementary school in Terrell,
That is correct.
and could you tell me a little more about that?
Well, that's one of my main problems with this whole thing is that the pipeline comes through my farm and goes to our town. And the elevation of the land is about 20 feet above where it goes to the field that's above the town and the school. And if you could bring up 120, you can see the distance of it. And my concern, it's 4/10 of a mile, I think is what it is. And my concern is, having watched this testimony here, it's unbelievable that they will not share how dangerous this pipeline could be. If it is so safe, then why not release the plume modeling in Iowa? Confirms my concern mainly for my community. The pipeline should not be built in Iowa and is definitely not a necessity or convenience to my community or the welfare of the state of Iowa. There are, in my community, the school, let's see. Okay, how can we know that the 165 plus elementary students in the school and 330 residents of the town of Terrell are safe when they won't release any info to prove it? I attended the Terrell Fire Department meeting on August 23rd, and I asked if they had been contacted by someone. The answer was no. I asked the ambulance crew if they had been contacted by someone. The answer was no.
Objection, Your Honor. The question was specifically about the elementary school in Terrell. This witness has pre-filed testimony. This sort of reading of a lengthy statement that is divorced from the question is simply supplemental direct testimony.
Your Honor, I can ask a follow-up question.
Okay, that's fine. We're just checking to see what other way in there. Go ahead, Ms. Ryan.
As a landowner, as you've had conversations with Summit about the pipeline route, has Summit given you any safety information about how you or your community would respond?
No.
Have you seen any safety plans for, what the elementary school would do I mean, I'm thinking I had tornado drills as a kid. What?
No, there's been nothing.
And your land, I think, if I recall correctly, is uphill from the elementary school.
Well, my land is a mile north of town,
Okay.
but the pipeline goes straight down, and this is my main concern, that at the town of Terrell, the pipeline crosses land that is 20 feet in elevation above the town of Terrell. And what little information that we find by ourselves tells me that the CO2 is a hazardous liquid, is heavier than air. It's going to go downhill. So that's where I'm at with my concern for my community.
Does Terrell have a volunteer fire department?
We do.
And I think you were just starting to elaborate, but if you have some more details, do you feel like your volunteer fire department in Terrell is prepared to respond if there was an emergency on your property?
No.
Do you know where the nearest sort of, full-time fire department is located?
Would be Milford, Iowa. There, it's about 10 miles to the west.
Do you know if they have a hazmat team?
No. The hazmat for our area comes out of Sioux City.
How far away is that?
2 hours, 100 miles.
Just double checking to make sure that that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. Do you farm this yourself?
No, I have basically retired about 10 years ago, and the young man who helped me for the last 10 or 15 years, he wanted to farm, and so I rented it out to him on a crop share basis. I help him when I can.
Okay. I'm going to kind of keep your fingers in it, huh?
As best I can.
Can we pull up the KMZ map? While we're doing that, it looks like from your testimony, this farm's been in your family since 1937?
That is correct.
Is there any possibility of your children or other relatives taking over?
No, my son has taken up other employment. He's 40 years old now, and he's in the agricultural business now, but he's a technology guru, I guess you might say.
So, does this look like your property we have up here on the screen?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's all farm ground, I take it?
Yes, it is.
Is it tiled?
It is. I have an exhibit that will show that complete. If you don't mind looking at another tile exhibit.
That's fine with me. Do we know the number?
303. There, that's basically laid out the same as the KMZ, so you can see what's going to happen. The yellow line that's coming from northwest to southeast is a natural gas pipeline. So you can kind of see when the contractor went in there, once that line was marked, I left the field when he started digging along the natural gas pipeline, but he knew what he was doing, and so he run a lot of those lines along parallel with the natural gas pipeline, which has worked out fairly well. But what I want, and I don't need to go into, you know what it's going to do. It can't be fixed, as what's been said before. And as Mr. Ellingson's testimony, that gave me some concern. This field here starts 2.5 miles of pattern tiled farm ground to the south edge of Terrell. So they've got a big job. And per the IUB handbook that we got at the meeting, it says that they are supposed to provide me with a GPS location map of all the tile that they fix. Okay, so what if they do not provide me with a map, what recourse do I have? Okay, after they sell the easement in a few years, I doubt the new owner is going to pay any attention to any easement contract that I signed.
So did you hear Mr. Ellingson's testimony?
I did. I was here.
Okay, and specifically, what do you take issue with what he said?
Well, yeah, I guess I can't remember exactly, but know that he can fix it. There are pictures that are in the book and what he said, they'll come along there and they'll go across there, but they've got some serious angles that they have to work with, and I don't see how they can do it. And I've done this. This is my next to last farm out of 600 acres that we padded tiled, and there's just no fixing them once you have a problem.
Have you had experience trying to fix broken tile?
I have, but I don't do it myself. I have the contractor. When we've had a few of these, we went through old tile, and we have blowouts at that time, not from the new tile, it was more from the old tile that we crossed. Another thing I want to bring up, from the top right there, you can just see down just a little bit. There's a red line that comes across that road. Okay, there's a farm to the west, or to the east, excuse me. Yeah, to the right, of 200 acres. That comes across my farm. It's a 12-inch tile at the road, and when it gets to that creek, it's a 14-inch tile. And that one has been there for many, many years. We didn't replace, I don't think he replaced any of that. If I look at the colors right, he just tapped into that, and it's probably 80, 90 years old, because that creek was put in 1905.
So when you had the experience of having someone repair some broken tile, was there any adverse issue with that, or any problem with that?
No, that's I think if you talk to most everybody that's done it now, that's why we do it, because the old tile that were put in, that my dad put in years ago, that was just to get, well, we got a wet spot here, let's put some tile in. Got a wet spot here, let's put some tile in. And that's how they did it, because this ground around our area was all pretty much swamp. And they put the creek in, and then it was farmable. And so that's, over the years, that's what my neighbors have done, is we go to more tile, and now to this process of pattern tiling, and it has increased productivity amazing. My dad would be amazed at the crops that we can raise now.
Is any of your property in the CRP or some similar program?
No, I do not.
Do you have any concerns about what impact the construction of the pipeline would have on the soil and the productivity of the crops?
Yes, just as everybody else says, I don't believe for a minute that they're going to push that. Well, as you've asked all the time about how deep they are. Okay, if the tile are 4 foot deep, they're going to push 2 foot of that topsoil back. Is what I've read from their construction essays that I've read. So they're going to go into that 100 feet, and they're going to push 2 foot of that away. Well, that only leaves, a small cover, and some of those tile are not going to end up being 2 foot deep after they do that. But the compaction with that is going to be the same as you've heard before, the subsoil. And if it's wet at all, and that's, like I said, that was all wet ground down through there. The north side there, there's not many tile up there because that's a hill. But the rest of the way down to where the house is all low ground. And it's very wet. Now this year, I'm going to have a good crop, even as dry as it is.
Yeah, I've heard the crops are better than people expected.
Well, we hope so. Now, up in that part of the state, we haven't started yet. We drive down here, and the dust is flying behind the combines.
Did you ever talk to a Summit land agent or a representative about an alternative route?
I have not.
What,
No.
What discussions have you had with the Summit agents?
Well, it was short and sweet. We got the letter to have the meeting, and after we had the meeting in September sometime, 2 years ago, and I got a phone call a couple of weeks later, and he said he wanted to come by with the contract, and he'd go over it with me. I told him that I could read it just fine, and then he could come back in a week or so and we would discuss it. When he came back, how did I say it? Do you expect me to sign this outrageous contract? And he said, well, you may wind up getting a lot less money in eminent domain. And after that, no, very few phone calls that we accepted and answered. I gave him permission in those papers at that meeting. I gave him permission for surveying, and that was fine. A couple times they came out. I made sure I was out in the field and knew where that 40-acre line was because they were always trying to get a little farther to the west. And I just rode along with them and made sure no confrontations or anything because I had given them permission.
So why haven't you signed an easement?
Because I don't believe we should even be here. This is not a utility seeking something, a product that can be used by people as, like my natural gas pipeline. I was probably only 5 years old when that was put in, but that brought the whole state of Iowa. That's probably about the time it come because it come from up by Spirit Lake somewhere and came down through Terrell and it brought more efficient heating and cooking to everybody who wanted it. If you didn't want it, you don't have to buy it. And that's my definition of a utility is providing a service that people want.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. All right, no questions from the board. Mr. Jorde for redirect.
Thank you. So the tiling map that we looked at on the, I think it was page 3 of Exhibit 303, the tiling was done after the natural gas line was in place.
Correct. It's 2008.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And you're concerned now that the tiling's there, that the new pipeline would go through and it would impact a lot of those lines on the current proposed path.
It's going to. And when I went back and brought up that old one from across the road, that one's not ready. That's down in the low ground, and that's probably only 3.5 to 4 foot deep, and it's 80 years old, and a lot of that is clay tile, and they're gonna have a mess with that, and back to the same problem with if it's wet at all, the compaction is going to be terrible on that farm.
You said you gave them permission to survey. Did they give you courtesy copies of the surveys they did on your land?
They did not.
If we can look at, please, the KMZ again. All right, and can we zoom in on that farmstead there? Now, is that any land that you own there, this place?
Yes, that's part of Jackson Farms Incorporated. We are a regular corporation.
All right, and so I can see there's a home there. Can we get a distance from that home to the pipeline, please?
I was guessing 1,200 feet, so let's see how far off I Who was less?
937?
I lost a bet with my wife then.
Okay, now, but is, who lives there?
We do.
That's
My wife and I live there.
Okay, and do you have, family and grandkids that visit you there?
We do.
All right. And then I noticed there's another larger building in white there. Is that a shed or?
That's a machine shed, yes.
All right, very good. And I suppose you work out there from time to time?
Not as much as I used to, no.
Okay. But other people do.
Yes.
Can we now take a look at Exhibit 120, please? Or actually, you know what? Can you zoom out maybe on this? We might be able to accomplish it this way. Zoom out a little bit. Now, where's this elementary school that you're going?
Go to the bottom. Keep going south toward town. There you go. There you go.
Okay. All right. And so that's
right. Zoom in on the west side of the buildings, and you'll see the school.
Objection.
Okay. There we go.
Cool. State your objection.
The map and the discussion of the elementary school are already admitted in evidence. This is duplicative of what's already in.
Well, its existence might be in. I'm trying to, for the testimony, just get the scale of the distance from town to where he's at, and then I'm pretty much almost finished. So that was my. Let me just ask that question. How far?
We'll move fast. We are on redirect, but go ahead and move fast and get your measurement.
Yep. How? I mean, it looked like we're about 1.5 miles from that area, or let's see, one.
From my house, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But then
the pipeline, see, they curved to go around the town as best they could, but they're on top of the hill.
So can we please get a measurement from the school to the pipeline on the west there, please? Well, no, I'm sorry, just immediately to the
pipeline.
To the pipeline, just, it'll be about
there you go.
1,100 feet or so. Let's see, I don't know. Oh, no, double. Okay, 2225. Okay, 2,225 feet.
Yeah, I figured just short of 1/2 mile, yes.
All right, very good. And do you understand if Terrell the natural growth would be to the west there?
No. The city owns the property to the east. The whole half, they own the whole half section.
Okay, to the east of the town.
Yeah, right. The property that's all to the east is basically owned by the town, yeah.
All right, very good. How many hours, sir, would you estimate
80.
you've spent on this project?
Well, that's pretty tough, Brian, to put a figure on it, but yes, quite a bit especially the last 6 months, yes.
Okay.
Probably 100 hours.
Okay.
At least.
And you haven't been compensated for any of that time by Summit?
No, I have not.
All right. Okay. I don't think I have anything else for you unless related to any updates that were brought out by cross-examination questions specifically. Do you have anything in that regard?
Well, I'd like to look at the easement exhibit if I could, but you tell me.
I guess
I had a comment to make about the easements.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to object to that. That could have been put in the direct testimony. The easement's been known and available since before that was filed.
Okay.
Well, this is the very last question. I guess I'd ask for a little leeway for what single comment on the easement, and then we'll be done.
I think we've had a lot of leeway. Well, if you want to ask a very direct question, you can.
Okay. You had some testimony in your pre-filed testimony relative to the easement. Do you have a discrete update as to that portion of your testimony?
Well, I don't know if this all was in there or not, but the getting back to my about the eminent domain, there's an easement for the state of Iowa and an easement for the Dixon County, and those were done by my dad back in whatever year to sell land to the state and sell land to the county to improve the roads, which became a public benefit for all citizens of the state of Iowa.
Okay, and you don't feel this is a similar type of project?
I have not determined yet any feasible product that I can get out of this pipeline.
All right, thank you, sir. I don't have anything further.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will conclude for this evening. We will be back here at 8 o'clock in the morning with Mr. Jorde's next witness. And you can let us know at the time, unless you know right now.
It's almost certainly going to be Lori Goff and then Martin Mayer after her, I think's the order.
Okay, very good. Thank you. See you in the morning.